All right, welcome back, everyone. This is Ebony again, aka Fit Mom Diva of Simplicity Health Style, and today we have Miss Stephanie with us. How are you, Stephanie?
Hello. I am wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for participating in this interview series. I really do appreciate your time. And for those of you that do stick around until the end, you will have an opportunity to earn a complimentary gift because Miss Stephanie is going to share some awesome jewels with us today, and we appreciate your time. So, Stephanie, can you start us off so that we get to know a little bit more about you and just share a motivational quote that really inspires you, something that encourages you and gets you going?
Sure. I always have quotes written everywhere. I love using that as a motivational tool. So I think one that really resonates with me and has kind of come up time and time again is to control the controllables. And that really for me is just, I'm someone who loves to plan and vision and think about my future, but I also have to remind myself constantly that we're not in control of everything. So I kind of just always have that mantra playing in the back of my mind. So even when something happens, I can remind myself I can only focus on what I can control. And so that helps.
Yeah, and I think that for a lot of us, we tend to get into a mode of I don't really understand what's going on. This wasn't supposed to happen this way. And where did that come from? And I should be over here, but I'm over there. And we don't know what to do in certain situations. We're very, kind of like which path do I go down? you know?
Absolutely.
And I think that that's, just a part of life. We can't necessarily control everything. And even when we control a portion of our life, sometimes people are playing a role in our plan that
Mhm.
affect us going from point A to point Z. Talk a
Mhm.
little bit about that. Talk a little bit about a time where you didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel and you had to overcome some obstacles, challenges, maybe some mindset related challenges. And at the end of the day, you were able to still see that goal or that dream to fruition.
I think definitely instead of it being just like a one time, it's kind of this recurring story of, kind of when I really started out in my career, I also started out as a single parent. So I had my daughter just as I was graduating with my bachelor's degree, and I immediately went back to school for my master's. So it's just a time in my life where I knew that I was doing it for our future. I wanted to provide for my daughter. I wanted to do more with my life. But in those days when I was parenting by myself, not sleeping from parenting, but also from taking, being in school and taking classes I was able to do online, but classes at night, working full time, I felt like there was so much on my plate and there was never going to be an end. There was
Yeah.
no end to that. And really that was a season of my life where I really didn't sleep. I really, not that I didn't, but I really had to focus on, let me just get through this next semester. And, each semester was one step closer to being towards that end. And then being honest, even at the end, it's not like you just graduate and all of a sudden your life is just figured out. So it took time even after that to figure out, okay, now I have this degree. What do I do with that? So just really
And
to be faithful that it's gonna eventually pay off.
yeah, and talk about that experience. Talk about when you completed the degree and you're wondering, okay, so what's next? Like, what kind of things went through your mind, and what would you encourage people when that happens? So you've gotten to the end of your goal, and now it's time to move to the next step, and you're kind of like, okay, so what do I do now?
There definitely, I think my mindset, there was a lot of questioning of, was this the right decision? I made all this sacrifice. I also, had to make choices to incur student debt. And, you go through that, almost that self-doubt at I guess, the end of that portion of my journey. And for me, it was a lot of just having to be open to this path is not going to maybe lead me exactly the way that I thought it was going to lead me, but just being open to any opportunity. And
Yeah.
for me, that actually meant taking a job that was completely out of my field and out of what I had studied for a year. And then I was able to find my way back to what I really wanted to do. And that was a scary leap of faith to just kind of go out of that. And that those skills that I actually learned in that helped me in my current role. So it ended up being great.
Yeah, and I think that's true that we can always use our current situation to help us in the next situation. And sometimes we don't necessarily know what that's going to look like, but just
Hmm.
taking the best of each moment, we can always make connections between where we are now and where we're headed. And I
Hmm.
think that everything happens to us in the way that it's meant to happen to us, you know? And I also think that there's not necessarily a bad situation. I think it's, just a learning situation.
Mhm.
And, there are certain situations that you may say, well, I never want to be in that again because, and you have a reason now.
Mhm.
Or you say, well, that was what it was. And if I had to go through it again, I wouldn't mind going through it again because now I know how to take it on a different way to make it more fruitful. So it's just, everything is just a learning experience.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about support systems? Because sometimes people feel like when they are going through certain things that they are all alone and that they are very unique and nobody else around them really understands what they're going through. Even when people sometimes want to help out, they may feel like, well, you're saying all the right things, but you really don't understand what I'm going through. So can you talk a little bit about how people can gain support when they feel like they don't have proper support?
Definitely. I think that's one thing that I learned personally from my experience is that sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves, and especially as women, that we have to just do it all, and we have to do it all without help. And sometimes we're in situations a lot of times where we do have a lot of the responsibility on our shoulders, but we still can, even if it's just having someone to talk to, it's seeking out that support. Sometimes it might not be readily available, even in your own family. They may not understand, where you're trying to go or what direction. So it's really seeking out those like-minded people that are driven and have goals. And maybe it's not the same exact goal, but people who understand that journey and the sacrifices you're making. And
Yeah.
whether that's, having that one good friend that you can rely on that's bringing positive, things into your life, or now with the age of social media, I feel like there's so many opportunities through meetups and different things to connect with other people that maybe have similar experiences or similar, paths that they're on. So sometimes you do have to kind of go out and search for that, but I just encourage people that it is out there. And, throughout my journey, I had people that maybe were only in my life for a certain period of time, but I feel like it was the right time when I needed someone to just listen, and whether it was being overwhelmed about being a single parent or being overwhelmed with bills and trying to figure out how to make that work, or is this the right next step? Should I take this job? Like having different people in my life that I could talk to about it and just get someone else's perspective.
Yeah.
Because it is very easy to feel like you're alone, and it can be overwhelming and isolating. So you have to sometimes break that bubble and be proactive about finding that support.
Yeah, you just said the right word, being proactive and
Mm-hmm.
finding the support. Because I believe that there are always people out there that can help support you in your endeavors. It's just, have you taken enough initiative to
Mm-hmm.
reach outside of your immediate family and friends or your immediate neighborhood or immediate city sometimes? I think
Your
that a
comfort
lot of
zone.
times we can find support from people that live in other countries. you know, it
Yeah.
all boils down to, do you have similar interests? And do you
Mm-hmm.
genuinely want to connect and help each other? I've met a lot of people on social media that I would have never met if it wasn't for social media that don't even live in the United States where I live. you know, it was just a matter of me extending myself out to them, and we had a similar interest, and we began to talk and realize, oh, we can help each other in different ways, and
Mm-hmm.
voila, there you go. So I think that, sometimes when we feel like immediate family and friends, they might want to support us, but they don't know how to support us in whatever vision that we have set for ourselves. There are always people out there that will be
Mm-hmm.
able to connect with you and sometimes be able to give you greater ideas than you would have thought about on your own. So yeah, just taking the initiative and being proactive, as you said.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the relationship between self-care and us realizing our dreams, because in order to be proactive, we have to feel like we have the energy to be proactive. And a lot of times when we're inundated with taking care of family and taking care of ourselves, just going about our normal days, or taking care of maybe sick family members, or whatever it is, sitting in traffic, a lot of times we don't feel like we have the energy to take care of ourselves. So can you talk a little bit about some self-care strategies that you've used, and maybe even some challenges that you have with being able to provide yourself with self-care?
Sure. And I will say, that's, to be transparent, that's something else that's an ongoing challenge and journey, where I'm always a work in progress. And I know, especially being a parent,
Yeah.
you get that mindset of putting your child first and putting your family first. And, I think of that airplane analogy of, if the oxygen mask come down, you've got to put your mask on first, because I'm no good to other people if I'm burnout. You know,
Right.
I'll be a better mother, a better wife, a better friend if I'm taking care of myself. But that's something I've had to almost learn and relearn. So, you know, it's dealing with the feelings of feeling guilty for taking time for yourself.
Yeah.
And sometimes just having to push through that and really remember why you're doing it. You know, I'm doing self-care because I want to be the best version of myself. And if I'm not taking care of myself, I'm not going to be able to reach my potential and really push myself the way I want to. So some of the things I do is just, for me, like I said, I'm a planner. I live by my planner. So I have to, it's not just going to happen. If you're not someone who already has a schedule or anything for self-care, it's not just going to magically manifest itself, you know, no matter how much we say we want it. So it's really, you know, committing to things. So, you know, for example, usually with the new year, we have resolutions. So I always do like, okay, my goal for this year is to do one race a year, whether it's a 5K or a 10K. I make a commitment for something like that, which means that also includes doing some training. And I always do those with a friend. So we actually make it fun. We dress up in costumes. So we're doing self-care, and also it's fellowship and building our friendship. So finding things like that where it's something I enjoy doing, something that's also good for my body, that makes me feel good. But again, it really comes down to taking that first step and really getting rid, like looking at what your realistic barriers are and then starting to just knock them down one by one.
Yeah, and I think that something important here is to also embrace that moment, even if it didn't turn out the way that you expected. Because I'm thinking, as you were talking, I'm thinking about a situation where I was hanging out with a friend that just had a baby, and the baby starts crying. You know, we're supposed to be, you know, having a girl talk conversation, and baby starts crying, and that interrupts our conversation. But her husband was sitting right there, and he basically was like, oh, just, you know, embrace the moment. Baby crying and all, just embrace the moment. And I think that's key, because we could have gotten irritated and frustrated about baby crying, but you know, just embrace the moment for what it is, you know. So I think that a part of self-care, whether you're doing it with other people or you're alone by yourself, really sitting in that moment. Because when it goes past that moment and now we've moved on to the next, we forget all about what we were even intending to be fun, like a fun situation, because we were so busy thinking about, oh, shut the baby up so we can finish off the conversation, you know? So I think it's key to also just sit and embrace whatever is happening in the moment. I think that for a lot of women, as you said, that it can be challenging to delegate and to, you know, not feel like we're worse off because we took some time to ourselves. We're actually always better off when we take time to ourselves. And it's not to feel guilty if you do take time to yourself. And I think that sometimes women feel like, you know, the kids are going to be suffering if we take time to ourselves, when in all actuality, they don't even care. They don't even think about it. You know, as long as they're fed, that's most of the time all they care about, you know. So taking that time away sometimes, I think, is vital to our creative juices that we can use later when we need it. I invite anyone that's listening to connect with me on a deeper level. And if you are struggling in the area of self-care and trying to gain control of your schedule so that you can integrate both your hobbies and your interests, and just taking time for yourself along with developing your career and your academia, a lot of that takes practice. You know, we didn't go to elementary and middle school and learn how to structure our schedule and prioritize. So if you guys need help in that area, I encourage you to reach out to me. I developed a course specifically for people that struggle in that area. And I've created complimentary free content in that area that you can utilize. That once you get into the mindset of knowing that decluttering your environment, whether that's the things in your environment or the people in your environment or different things that just are no longer of interest to you, once you begin to declutter your environment, I show you how to do that. Once you begin to do that, you begin to see that you have a lot more time in your schedule that you didn't even realize was there. If you're struggling in that area, I encourage you to reach out to me. I can assist you. Stephanie, can you offer any last words of encouragement to ladies? And what if you were someone that didn't have a support system? You weren't somebody that went to school where you were able to earn additional education, and actually be able to open yourself up to more opportunities. And you're sitting here and you're listening and you're like, that's all well and fine, Stephanie, but I'm nowhere near completing a college degree, haven't even started college. I don't have any support around me. I don't have any family members around me. What are some words of encouragement that you could give to those ladies that are listening?
Sure. I think I would say just sometimes we get so focused on the end result, which might be years down the road, and then you have this giant mountain in front of you. So it just seems like, how am I ever going to possibly get there? You know, even as you were just describing, like, okay, now you have your degree and your career. It took a long time to get to that point. And if I thought about it like, okay, this is my one long-term goal, I feel like that would be almost a discouraging way of looking at it. So really, it starts with like those small goals. So, you know, if you have no support system, maybe your first goal is to try to identify some way to connect with people who have similar interests. And whether that's going on social media, looking at different meetups that are in the communities. A lot of our, you know, communities now are having these different types of groups especially for young people, young women. They've got groups for every type of whatever you identify as. So starting with that first step, and maybe just finding people around you that are going to help lift you up, whether that's a church or a community center. So that first step. And then I would also encourage that every time you take those little steps, to celebrate each step. Because sometimes we say, okay, we're going to wait until we get to this point and then we can celebrate. But every little step that we take is a step closer to our goal. So just really celebrating those wins, even if they're small.
Yes, and I believe that is so key. I have a tendency sometimes to just be forward thinking. I just keep thinking about the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, that I don't always sit and reflect on everything that I've actually achieved up until this stage. And I think that's the case for a lot of us. You know, we don't necessarily sit in reflection for long enough. And when you do sit in reflection for long enough, you begin to appreciate where you are. And then it just gives you that much more encouragement and momentum to keep forward, because you realize how strong you are. You know, you realize, wow, I actually did all that. And I did all that with all this going on at the same time. You know, so being grateful for where you are in the moment while you're celebrating those successes, I think is key to keep that momentum going sometimes. Yeah, thank you. Any of you that are actually struggling with also identifying what your core life purpose is. For a lot of ladies, we may be successful in what we're doing. So on paper, it looks excellent, but we're not necessarily always fulfilled in what we're doing. I see that with a lot of corporate women where, you know, they might be making six figures. They might live in a nice sized house. They might have a wonderful family, go on trips. And so they look successful and they feel successful, but at the same time, they're not exactly fulfilled. They think that they should be somewhere else. So for any of you that are struggling with making a change in doing something that's more in line with a career choice that's more fulfilling to you, I'm going to offer you a complimentary assessment to look at your gifts and your personality type, as well as to help hone in on what that core purpose is so that you can serve others in another way. And that doesn't necessarily even mean that you have to quit your full-time job. It could be something that you do on the side that just brings you a little bit more light into your day. And you guys can find all of my contact info in the description box and connect with me in my Facebook group, Nutrition for Busy Women. We're not just talking about nutrition from a food consumption standpoint. We're also talking about it from a mind, body, and soul perspective. So for any of you that needs help in that area, send me an email or connect with me in my group. And I will definitely offer you complimentary assessments to get you going and provide a little bit more focus. Stephanie, do you have any very last words of encouragement that you would like to provide before we end? Anything that we didn't talk about? Anything that maybe you would have loved to hear when you were going through some challenges back in the day?
I think just that we need to remind ourselves that it's never too late to make a change. You know, we think like, okay, well, I'm in this situation and I don't have the resources, but I'm already, you know, maybe in my 20s or in my 30s, 40s. It doesn't matter. Like at any point we're powerful people and we can create our future. So it's just, we don't have to stay on one path just because that's where we started out or because of our childhood, whatever happened in the past. You know, that's a part of us and that's helped create us, but we can create our future. So I think just remembering that no matter where you're at today, you can take those steps, and it is possible for us to create things in our life that bring us joy and bring us happiness.
Yes, thank you so much for saying that. Create your future. That is so true. We can't expect for things to just happen to us. Nothing is magic. It just falls in our lap most of the time.
Wouldn't that be nice?
I know, that would be great. Just, you know, rub the magic the magic belly, and voila,
Yeah.
you go. Most of the time it doesn't happen that way. Most of the time you're actively working and creating what you want to occur in
Mhm.
your life. So just keep that in mind and always be creating positive experiences in your life, knowing that there's always a light at the end of the tunnel if we just press through and stay persistent with it.
Mhm.
So thank you. I appreciate you so much. And for any of you that are listening, if you want to share your experiences and put it out there into the world so that other ladies can learn that we are more powerful than we sometimes believe, I encourage you to connect with me and let me know. And I would love for you to be able to share your story and share some challenges that you've even gone through. A lot of times we can learn best when we also hear other people's challenges.
Mhm.
So I'd encourage you to reach out to me and Stephanie as well. All her contact info is in the description box, so you can connect with her as well. She's open to all opportunities of connection as well. So thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate you.
Thank you
And
for having me. It's a pleasure.
yes, thank you. And you guys share this content out, even if it didn't benefit you, which I'm sure it did. If it didn't benefit you, share
Always.
it out. Share it out with family and friends that you believe that can benefit. I would strongly appreciate it. Wherever you are in the world, always remember to live a life full of meaning and purpose. And I look forward to seeing you guys in our next episode. I'll talk to you soon.